Locomotives. They used to be everywhere, but why have they almost disappeared? And what is replacing them? You've probably guessed, it's multiple units. So where did these come from? Okay, so what exactly is that? Well, we're looking at one right now. Okay, that doesn't really explain much. Trains need energy to move. Originally this was steam. Not like this. There we go. And this took up lots of space, meaning it needed its own carriage, the locomotive. But with the arrival of proper subway and metro lines in the 1900s, steam was no longer possible to use due to poor ventilation in tunnels, meaning electricity started being used to power trains. And this is where things get relevant again. The Chicago L was where multiple unit traction control was first developed, applied, and tested. Okay, so what's that? Instead of having one big motor at the front of the train, each carriage has its own smaller motor, which are all controlled together. And this was a huge invention, as it meant trains could hold more people and get as long as we could ever want without sacrificing performance. We just need to take the big motor and split it into lots of small motors throughout the train, and that lets us use that space for passengers. And having more space is very important on urban rail lines that need to move as many people as possible. But what are those performance benefits? More importantly, all of these small motors together weigh less than a locomotive, improving acceleration and reducing energy consumption. But the fact that they're lighter is also very important for another thing: tracks, bridges, and weight restrictions. Lighter trains can go on weaker bridges, which cost less money to build. In addition, lighter trains also wear down the tracks less. Again, reducing maintenance, saving money, and improving reliability. But there are still more reasons that multiple units are absolutely everywhere, even on mainline railways. Adhesion. By spreading out the driven wheels over a larger section of track, the train can still accelerate over a smaller section of poor adhesion, like leaves on the line, something one locomotive would struggle with, making multiple units a lot more reliable. Again, important on busy lines. But there's still more. Tension. Despite having some of the most powerful locomotives, freight trains take forever to get up to speed. And yeah, freight trains are a lot heavier. But the main reason is that the couplers between carriages are only so strong. We can't pull too hard from the front of the train or they'll break. This means that the total force that we can use is low, and at a fixed mass, the acceleration also must be low. Which means a lot more time is spent getting up to speed. For freight trains, this isn't the biggest issue, as freight can't claim delivery pay. That's probably a good thing. But if we're a bit more concerned about time, this problem needs solving. Acceleration is critical for trains that stop and start frequently, and trains that run very short headways, which is why reducing stress on the couplers is essential. So, how can we do that? Distributed distributed power. What if we push from the back as well as pulling from the front? This is the imaginatively named push-pull, like the HSTs, where we have multiple locomotives at different points throughout the consist to better balance the forces throughout the train. And this means less stress on the couplers, but locomotives are now taking up lots of space, and they're quite heavy too. This is certainly better than just one locomotive, but we can go even further by powering more of the carriages to reduce tension, but placing motors under the floors, leaving more space for passengers. Oh wait, that's a multiple unit. Improved acceleration really helps save time and run trains closer together, both of which are important on busy main lines, assuming a freight doesn't appear. So, why do freight still use locomotives then? There's actually still one huge advantage to locomotives: operational flexibility. Freight trains have very complex loads, belonging to many different customers, which takes lots of time to sort at yards. Even trains with one type of load still need lots of time to unload, but the locomotive, or even parts of the consist, may be needed again.
stuff and more trains.
Freight is just a much more complex operation. For the most part, passenger trains always need the same consist, as each carriage is usually the same, and the train will only operate the same service again and again, and also needs to be turned around quite quickly, the sleepers being the exception, which are actually loco hold. The sleepers are less concerned about time as, well, they run overnight, when things are generally a bit quieter. But actually, multiple units can be a lot more flexible, at least for passenger trains. The best example being the class 158 and 159. You can make a train of just about any length with these things. Just couple them up. No need to worry about acceleration and traction or getting cabs in the right place. They run services as short as 2 coaches and as long as 10. What's even better is if one fails,
123 is a very dodgy air compressor. I'm not moving next to it.
the whole train can still run, as the other units still have independent motors. If your single locomotive fails, well, you're stranded. So for most passenger railways, locomotives just don't make a lot of sense. I mean, that's sort of why they're so uncommon. It's really just LNER, Chiltern, the Caledonian Sleeper, the Night Riviera Sleeper, something in Wales apparently, can't be asked to go there, and what's left of the HSTs. Ah yeah, this one too. And of course, all our freight services. We've got a Discord server if you're interested. Link is in the description. Alright, that's all for locomotives and multiple units, if I didn't miss anything. And if you enjoyed that, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see us next time.